I'm the one who blew this up, I know that. I got so worked up I couldn't stand the look on his face anymore. I'm not saying that like I'm proud of it. I'm saying it because it's the part that makes me sound unhinged, and I need to be honest about what I actually did, not just what I meant. We've been together 3 years. We live together. It's not some brand new situation where we're still learning each other's schedules. I know his hours. He works a job where off at 11 is supposed to mean off at 11. He's not salaried. He's not some guy who gets to drift in and out of work whenever. It's shift work, clock in, clock out, and the whole thing is exhausting even when it goes normally. He gets home smelling like grease in that industrial soap, and he usually showers right away because he hates sitting on the couch like that. I know all of this. This is our routine. Also, I'm not the chill girlfriend. I've never been. I try sometimes, but it's like my body doesn't cooperate. I hate that about myself. I also, if I'm being honest, use it like a weapon when I'm cornered. Like if I go big enough, nobody can ignore me. There have been other fights, not the ring thing, not like that. But fights where I pack a bag and throw stuff in and then don't actually leave, or I drive around the block and come back, or I sit in my car in the parking lot with my phone in my hand, waiting for him to text me to come back inside. I know it's embarrassing. It's like I'm staging my own dramatic exit for an audience of one. He knows I do that. He hates it. He said more than once, you don't get to threaten the whole relationship every time you're mad. Which, yeah, fair. The thing is, he isn't a big talker. He's not a sit down and tell me how you're feeling person. If he's tired, he goes quiet. If he's stressed, he goes quiet. If he's annoyed, he goes quiet. And the quiet makes me spiral. I start filling it in with stuff. He's hiding something. He doesn't care. He thinks I'm stupid. He's choosing not to tell me because he wants me to sit here and worry. It turns into this whole thing in my head, and then when he finally speaks, it's like too late. I'm already angry about the version I created. And I've tried to explain that to him in calmer moments, not in therapy language or anything, just like, please don't leave me guessing. He'll say he gets it, he'll say he'll text, and then 2 weeks later it happens again, and I feel stupid for believing him. So tonight, he was supposed to be home around 11:30-ish. Sometimes he stops for gas or picks up something from the grocery store and doesn't tell me, which also drives me insane because I'm not his mom. I'm not tracking him, I just want basic courtesy, like a text, running late, anything. At 11:45 I texted him, just a normal "are you okay?" No response. At 12:20 I called, it rang out. At 12:45 I called again. He picked up and it was loud in the background, and he sounded irritated, like I had interrupted something. He said something like, I'm finishing up, and I went, finishing up what? And he said, work, like that should have been obvious. I asked why he didn't tell me he was staying late, and he did that sigh thing he does, the long one that makes me feel like I'm 8 years old asking too many questions. He said he'd be home soon. When he finally got home, it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and I know there are people who will read that and go, okay, he was working. But it's not just that he was working, it's that he didn't tell me, he didn't answer. And when he finally did, he acted like I was the annoying part of his night. He came in quietly, like he was trying not to wake me, but I wasn't asleep. I had been flipping between my phone and the TV, not actually watching anything. He looked at me and you could see it in his face. He was already bracing, like, here we go. He asked why I was up. I said, because you weren't home. He started doing the shoes off thing, slow and tired, and he said, I told you I was finishing up. I said, you said that at almost 1 a.m. He mumbled something about a call-out, someone not showing up, and the supervisor asking him to stay. And I just snapped. I asked why he didn't text. He said he didn't have time. I asked if he had time to breathe. He gave me this exhausted look, and he said, I'm not doing this right now. That sentence is like gasoline to me, not because it's wrong to set a boundary, I get that, but because when he says it, it means he's done, and I'm still sitting there with all this adrenaline. It feels like he gets to decide when my feelings matter, so I went at him harder. I asked why he's been acting weird lately, why he's been so checked out when he gets home, and why he's always tired but can apparently stay at work for 3 extra hours. I asked if he thinks I'm stupid. He said no. I said, then why do you treat me like I'm the last thing you have to deal with at the end of the day? He tried to walk past me towards the bedroom, and I followed him. I hate that I did that like some shadow. He kept saying he had work in the morning, and I kept saying, so do I, because I do. I'm not sitting at home knitting and waiting. I work too. My job isn't as physically demanding, but it's still a job, and I still have to show up and be functional. He got to the bedroom and started taking off his shirt like he was going to shower, and I was standing there basically blocking the bathroom door, still talking. I was asking for proof he was at work. I asked to see his timesheet. I asked why his phone was dead. He said it wasn't dead, it was just on silent. That made me angrier because silence means he chose to not hear me. Then he said something like, I can't do this every time I get asked to stay late. And I said, then maybe tell me when it happens. And he said, I shouldn't have to report to you like you're my boss. And I went, I'm not your boss, I'm your fiancé, and you're supposed to give a damn if I'm worried. He stayed silent. I grabbed my overnight bag from the closet and started stuffing stuff into it. Not even logical stuff, like I shoved in a pair of leggings and a sweater and my charger and then stood there like, see, I'm leaving. He didn't stop me, which again I know is not his job to stop me, but in my head it was like confirmation that I don't matter. He sat on the bed and put his face in his hands for a second. He looked so tired, and for a split second I felt guilty, like I could see myself through his eyes and I looked insane. And then he said, very flat, "Are you actually going somewhere?" That flatness hit me like a slap, like he didn't even believe me, like I'm predictable, like I'm a tantrum with legs, so I did something worse. I took my ring off. This ring isn't some tiny little thing. It's not a celebrity rock, but it's real. He saved for it. I know he did because I remember him being stressed that year about money, and I thought it was because of his truck needing repairs, and later he admitted he'd been putting aside extra shifts. He proposed on a random Tuesday night in our kitchen because he couldn't wait anymore, and I cried so hard I got mascara on his hoodie. That's how attached I am to that ring. It's not just jewelry. It was him choosing me in a way that felt solid. I took it off and I said, maybe we shouldn't do this then. He looked at the ring in my hand and said, don't do that. I said, don't do what? He said, don't threaten us because you're mad, and I don't even remember deciding to throw it. I swear I do. I just remember my arm moving and the ring hitting his chest and bouncing onto the comforter. It didn't even make a big sound. That's the stupidest part. In my head it was this huge gesture, and in real life it was just this little tink and then it rolled. He stared at it for a second, then picked it up. He didn't hand it back. He didn't say anything. He just put it in his pocket like it was his keys, and that made me see red, because that ring was mine. He bought it, yes, but he gave it to me. It's not like I borrowed it. I told him, give me my ring. He said, not right now. I said, no, give it back, it's mine. He looked at me like I was exhausting him from the inside out. He said something like, I'm not doing this at 2 in the morning, go to sleep. I said, stop acting like you're above it, give me my ring. He hesitated. I could tell he didn't want to keep going. He looked like he wanted to drop his body into the bed and be unconscious for 6 hours. And honestly, I think that's the only reason he pulled it back out and handed it to me. He put it in my palm and said, there. Which should have made me feel like I won, but it didn't. It made me feel disgusting, like I was forcing something out of him. I marched out with my bag like I was going to leave, but I didn't leave. I went to the guest room, which is such a joke. Like, wow, I really showed him. I went to the other bedroom in the same house. I slammed the door. I lay on the bed fully dressed and just stared at the ceiling. I could hear him moving around for a bit, then the shower turned on. Water ran, the house settled, and then it got quiet, and I just sat there, boiling. I fell asleep for maybe 2 hours, not even real sleep. When I woke up, it was still dark outside. My phone said 5:17. I could hear him snoring faintly through the wall, like he was actually sleeping like a normal person after that, and I felt this surge of anger again, like he got to rest, and I got to be the one rotting in it. I sat up, my throat felt tight. My eyes felt puffy, like I had cried without noticing. I looked at the ring on the nightstand where I'd set it down. I picked it up. And then I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out of the guest room as quietly as I could, because I didn't want him to wake up and try to talk to me. I didn't even fully know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house with that ring on the nightstand and him asleep in the other room like none of it mattered. So I left. I didn't have a plan when I pulled out of the driveway. I just drove. I ended up near the old bridge by the river. I parked and just sat there with the engine running. I kept turning the ring in my fingers, thinking, objects don't care what you're feeling. They just exist. I got out of the car and walked up to the railing. I thought about how he put it in his pocket, how he said there, how tired he looked, how I probably looked worse. I wish I could say I stood there for a long time thinking it through. I didn't. It was maybe a minute, maybe less. I pulled my hand back and threw it. The second it was gone, my stomach dropped so hard I actually grabbed the railing because I felt dizzy. It was so immediate, not like regret building, just instant. Like my brain caught up 1 second too late and went, what did you just do? I leaned over like I was going to somehow see it midair and catch it again. Obviously, I couldn't see anything. It was just water and early light and nothing. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds and then I got back in my car. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I had 4 missed calls from him, 2 texts, where are you, and then, are you okay? Not what's wrong with you, not are you done, just that. I didn't answer. I started driving again because I couldn't sit there knowing what I'd just done. I drove aimlessly for a while, then pulled into a gas station and just sat there parked by the air pump like an idiot. That's when the shame really hit. Not just about the money, not just about the ring, about the fact that I had taken something he worked extra shifts for and treated it like it was disposable because I was angry for a few hours. I could already hear how this would sound if I told anyone. I sounded unstable. My phone rang again. I let it ring. If I answered, he'd ask where I was. If I went home, he'd ask where the ring was. I hadn't even thought about that part until that second. I stared down at my bare finger and felt like I'd stepped into a hole. I considered going back. I actually put the car in reverse like I was going to drive back to the bridge and what? Dive in, asked the river nicely. It was ridiculous. I sat there with my blinker on for so long someone honked behind me. That's when the next bad decision happened. I booked a hotel room on my phone. I told myself I needed space, that this was about cooling down, that I couldn't walk back into the house without making it worse. That part wasn't even fully a lie. I did need space, but I also needed time. Time to figure out what I was going to say about the ring. I texted him, "I'm safe. I need a couple of days." He called immediately. I declined it. He texted back, "Where are you?" I typed "at a friend's place," then erased it, then typed it again, then sent it. He replied, "Okay, can we talk?" I said, "Not right now," which is something I've said before in fights. I say it like it's calm and mature, but really it means I don't want to answer questions. I checked into the hotel at 7:12 in the morning. I dropped my bag on the bed and just stood there. It felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life for a second. I kept looking at my hand. The empty space looked louder than the ring ever did. I considered telling him it was at home on the nightstand, that maybe I'd just left it there. But that would last 5 minutes before he'd look and see it was not. I thought about saying I lost it somewhere during the night, that maybe it fell off in the guest room, that maybe it slipped off in the car. Every option required me to lie further. My phone buzzed constantly for the first hour, then it stopped. That was worse. When he finally texted again, it said, "I'm not mad, I just want to know you're okay." That made me feel worse than if he'd yelled. I typed, "I'm fine, just need space." Then I added, "You don't get to come home at 2 without telling me and expect me to be fine." I needed to keep the argument alive. If we were still fighting about overtime, then we weren't talking about the ring. He responded, "I told you what happened." I said, "After I called you." He didn't respond to that. Around noon, I started Googling ring replacements. I found a few that looked similar, but they were thousands of dollars. We don't just have thousands sitting around. The idea of asking him to buy another one made me nauseous. I searched pawn shops. I searched river jewelry recovery. I even found some scuba diving forums where people talk about retrieving stuff from water. It was absurd. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. Around 3 p.m. he called again. I answered this time because ignoring him was starting to feel childish. He sounded tired, not angry. He asked where I really was. I said I told him. He said my friend texted him asking if I was okay. My stomach flipped. Apparently he had texted my friend too, just to make sure I was there. She told him she hadn't seen me. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I said I didn't want her in the middle of it. He said, "Then where are you?" I told him I was at a hotel. There was a long pause. He asked which one. I didn't answer. He said, "Are you safe?" I said yes. Then he asked, "Why are you doing this?" I said I wasn't doing anything. I just needed space because he dismisses my feelings. He said, "You threw your ring at me." I said he pocketed it like it was nothing. He said he pocketed it because he didn't want it rolling under the bed. He asked if I still had it. I said, "Yeah, I have it." He said, "Okay." Now I wasn't just the person who threw it. I was the person who threw it and then lied straight to his face about still having it. He asked if we could talk in person. I said, "Not today." He said he wasn't trying to fight. I said neither was I. After we hung up, I sat on the bed and just stared at nothing. That night I didn't sleep at all. Every time my phone lit up, I felt a jolt. It was mostly him. A few from my friend asking if I was okay. I didn't answer her. On the second day, he texted, "We need to figure this out." I said, "I agree." He said, "Are you coming home?" I typed, "I don't know." He replied, "Do you want to be engaged to me?" That question felt like it split the room in half. Because yes, I do. I love him. I don't want to lose him over one fight. But I also know this isn't the first time I've escalated something small into something huge. It's just the first time the stakes were this obvious. I said, "Of course I do." He wrote back, then stopped running. And that hit hard because he said versions of that before. Not about physical running. About the way I pull the nuclear option when I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do now. If I go home, I have to explain where the ring is. I have to admit I lied. I have to watch his face when he realizes I threw away something he worked for. If I stay away longer, I'm just digging the hole deeper. Part of me wants to keep the fight about overtime, to say this whole thing is about respect and communication and how he makes me feel small. But another part of me knows that right now the bigger issue is that I reacted like a child and then tried to cover it up instead of owning it. He hasn't called me names. He hasn't told me it's over. He keeps asking if I'm coming home. I don't know if he's being patient or if he's just waiting to see how far I'll take this. I'm sitting in this hotel room staring at my empty finger, and I can't tell if he's the one who disrespected me by not texting, or if I'm the one who just proved I'm not ready to be anyone's wife. Is he wrong for brushing off how scared and angry I felt? Or am I about to lose my engagement because I can't control my temper? I need to know if I'm justified in being this upset about him coming home at 2 without telling me, or if I'm the one who crossed a line that you don't come back from. Follow up. I went back to the bridge. I told myself I was just going to look, that maybe I'd see something glinting near the edge, that maybe it hadn't gone as far as I thought. I don't even know what I expected. The river isn't shallow. It's not clear. It's not some fountain you can reach into. I parked in the same spot. I brought some tools and convinced myself maybe it had caught on something near the side. I looked ridiculous. Leaning over the railing, stretching this rake down between concrete gaps like I was fishing for something I dropped in a drain. A guy walking his dog stopped and asked if I was okay. I snapped at him and said yes. He didn't look convinced. Then a patrol car pulled up. Apparently someone thought I was trying to jump. I had to stand there and explain that no, I wasn't self-harming. I just dropped something. The officer asked what. I hesitated. Then I said, a ring. He asked if it was valuable. I said yes. He asked how it ended up over the side. I said I threw it. He gave me a judgmental look. They left after making sure I wasn't going to climb over the railing. While I was dealing with that, my phone kept buzzing in my car. It was him. I finally answered. He said, "Why is there a police officer calling me asking if you're safe?" My stomach dropped. Apparently the officer had run my plates. I told him I dropped something. He said, "What did you drop?" There was no point in lying anymore. I told him. There was silence on the line that felt longer than it probably was. Then he said very evenly, "You threw it." I started talking fast, saying I was upset, saying I didn't mean to, saying it was a mistake and I tried to get it back. I said it was just a ring. I said he cared more about the stupid ring than about why I was hurt in the first place. That's the part I regret saying the most, because he didn't yell. He just said, "It's not about the ring." But I wouldn't let it go. I kept saying if it was just a symbol, then why was he acting like I destroyed something sacred? I accused him of caring more about the money and the object than about the fact that I felt ignored and disrespected that night. He said, "You lied to me." I said that was because I knew he'd react like this. He said, "Like what?" I didn't have a good answer. He asked if I was coming home. I said yes. I thought maybe we'd scream it out and then fix it. That's usually how our fights go. This was not that. When I walked in, the house felt rearranged. He was sitting at the dining table. Some document papers were on the table between us, empty. He asked me to sit down. I tried to start explaining again. He held up his hand, not aggressive, just stopping me. He said he needed to know if this is how I handle conflict, if this is what marriage with me would look like, me threatening to leave, me throwing symbols of commitment, me lying when I panic. I said it wasn't that deep. I said it was one bad fight. I said he was blowing it up. He said, "Give me the ring." I told him I couldn't give him what I didn't have. He closed his eyes for a second like he was bracing. Then he said, "Okay." He stood up and said he needed space, that he couldn't keep living inside these blow-ups, that he feels like he's constantly waiting for the next escalation. I told him he was overreacting, that I went back to try and fix it, that I obviously cared or I wouldn't have done that. He said, "You cared after." Then he said I should pack my things. He said he needed distance and he couldn't trust me in the house while everything was this volatile. He gave me a deadline. If I wasn't out by then, he'd start the legal process to have me removed since the lease is in his name. Hearing that made everything in my chest collapse. I told him I had nowhere to go. He said I could stay with my friend or my sister. I said that wasn't the point. He said the point is he can't keep living in fear of what I'll do next when I'm upset. I tried to argue. I said he was abandoning me over one mistake. He said it wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. I started crying then. He didn't comfort me. He didn't touch me. He just stood there looking tired in a way I've never seen before. Now I'm back at the hotel because I couldn't stay there tonight. I'm staring at the wall, thinking about how I went from being engaged to possibly homeless in 2 days. Part of me still wants to say he's choosing a piece of jewelry over us, that he's being cold, that he should understand I act out when I'm hurt. But another part of me knows I keep pushing things to the edge to see if he'll pull me back. This time he didn't. I don't know if he's being reasonable and I'm just refusing to see it, or if he's using this as an excuse to bail when things get